Well, a good day to you. You're watching SA Explained right here on ENCA. Of course, we're talking to you online, and this is why we're looking forward to getting your comments underneath this post on the discussion that we're about to have. I'm Naledi Moleo. I'm not alone. Today, I am joined by our very own Nqaba Mabece, but we're going to get into a really interesting discussion, right? I was trying to count just how much time we've got left, and we've got about just under 4 months until we get into those hotly contested local government elections, and what a campaign trail it is we already have started to see. You've got political parties, particularly in the metros, really starting to put forward the names of their candidates, and they have sparked such great discussions. Think about the candidate, for instance, for the Land Party, Ntsiki Mazwai, getting a lot of people talking about her popularity, and if that possibly translates to her being able to sway people from inside council in Johannesburg. But let's look at other areas, right? Action SA, for instance, has looked at a guy like Khumalo, who is also a television personality known for his anti-drug activism. But is he a leader? That remains to be seen and is going to be decided by the voters. Another personality in Johannesburg, Lukwana Mnguni, known to be a political commentator, someone who was in the media, much like ourselves here, and now putting his hat in the ring for the position of the mayor of Johannesburg. What does this say to us about how political parties are viewing the electorate and how they make their decisions about who leads their cities? Is the populist personality still one that grabs the attention of the electorate? Of course, Nqaba Mabece has got, some of the the framework that we need to be thinking about, but many opinions of his own as well. Nqaba, good afternoon to you. It's nice to finally chat with you for once on air. Yeah.
Good to be here. Fantastic. You are my hero. Everything I've done in media, you've done and have done before, interestingly, both in radio and television. So I look forward to being shepherded by you.
No, I'm really excited. Beside from being shepherded by you, I hope that because I've spent some time in the media, it doesn't mean that at some point you're going to encourage me to take a leadership position. But let's get into that, right? Olani Khumalo, Lukwana Mnguni, people that we know very well, household names for the most part. Is the populist leader still somebody that the electorate looks for when they decide who runs their suburb and their city?
First of all, congratulations to them for putting their names out there. It's a signal in the right direction that young people are not satisfied to be bystanders in how their affairs are run or by whom their affairs are run. And as a result, they have decided, if not me, then who? And they have put their necks out on the line to say, give me a chance. If not for that, may they then agitate for those who become the incumbents to do what all South Africans are due. We are due a public service that is worthy of the sacrifice that begot us 1994 and the social compact that has been since 1994. We are worthy of the dignity that carries in public service. We are worthy of clean water. We are worthy of clean streets, safe streets for a Naledi to, when she decides she wants to go for a walk or a run at any time of day, to be able to do so without having to consider anything other than what she wants to do at a particular time. We are worthy of play parks and recreational facilities for young and old alike to be able to enjoy. We should be mindful of the fact that it is local government that is the core deliverer of the Constitution. That's where you experience the majority of your rights. And so those who preside over local government and the precious few resources that are allocated for local government function, those are the men and women who probably, in my view, have a far greater responsibility, say, than a minister or a premier or even somebody in the executive government.
100%.
Back to your point. Every South African is entitled to demand whatever they want to demand from their representative. So if somebody wants somebody who's popular because they believe in X, Y, and Z, then they are entitled to that. If it all results in a local government that is efficient, that creates a better return than what we are currently experiencing, and that allows everybody in that community to have a better tomorrow than their yesterdays, I'm all for a local government that delivers that, irrespective of the identity of the person.
Yeah, because, and this is where I suppose it starts to get quite dicey, right? Because we're going to look at perhaps even the personal lives that some of these individuals have lived. And in the case of women, it becomes even more difficult, the likes of the discussions that have been had around Nsiki Mazwai, for instance. So we don't need to get into that because we must protect the dignity of everyone that we're speaking about. But there are the characteristics that surely need to be in place for a leader to be able to, as you say, be the executor of those constitutional rights in our democracy and in our community. Someone like, someone who's a populist, for instance, do they understand the infrastructural backlog that a city like Johannesburg does have and how they need to lead that? So maybe what we need to talk about is, even in the run-up to the elections, the IEC, for instance, what they put in place as, well, this is what you need to tick off as your list of boxes to say that you can stand as a candidate for your city.
Well, populism as a standalone feature probably is not going to deliver that, but it can be true alongside somebody who has capacity.
Yeah.
Mandela is a perfect exponent of what somebody who was very popular among the black nations and I suppose across the political divide in many respects. He was a very popular person, not just in the country, but the world over. And his death more than proved that. And yet he understood what his mandate was. He understood his mission. So the populism is not necessarily a qualifier or a disqualifier. But ultimately, what qualifies somebody to be able to deliver is one's capacity.
Yeah.
Capacity in understanding the task at hand, capacity to understand that there'll be many competing tensions and having the temperament to make the right call or the best call that the circumstances at the time allow you to make, and owning that decision after the fact and having the kind of conscience that allows you to be able to operate in any space, engage your political detractors with a calm poise and posture that says, I did my best with what I had at the time I had it. That for me is, irrespective of what else is, I'm going to say, the fluff around an individual. I mean, charisma has a role to play in leadership. Madiba had plenty of that. Former President Jacob Zuma similarly had a ton of that, if not possibly more, one might argue. That should not qualify or disqualify somebody. Again, capacity, ability to understand that you are here but for a moment. Was it not Shakespeare who says, all the world's a stage and each of us will have a role to play, some more than others. That all said, the more than others party are those persons who are trusted with state resources to lead state institutions and deliver on a mandate that is not just drawn up because the language allows us to do so. There's a rich history and a deep, painful history that begets us the constitutional settlement, the arrangement of state and its enterprise. There's reason why we have what we have the way that it is.
Well, let me challenge you.
Yeah.
Because, again, I go back to what it takes to become a councillor.
Yes.
Right? The ANC holds a roll call and brings in hundreds of councillors from across the country that represent them at local government level. The chairperson of the party, as they're singing and, their struggle songs and full ANC style, chairperson of the party stands in front of them and says, "You're very good at singing, but capacity, dololo." I mean, come on. We all remember that moment, the president of the party conceding that the Democratic Alliance in some areas governs better than the ANC. That was quite a hullabaloo, and I'm keen to hear your views on that. But what does it take to become a councillor? Gwede Mantashe is saying you can't just be able to sing, you need capacity. What does capacity look like? If for me to sign up to be a councillor, all I need to be is 18 years old, a South African citizen. What is the list? I mean, at what point do we show the electorate at the time that they go and vote that you have that capacity?
That's a fair point, and I think I'm going to draw reference to particularly the latter contributions of your question to the Constitution. Section 158, Chapter 7, Local Government. I mean, this is what qualifies somebody to be a local government councillor or a member of the provincial legislature, whatever the case might be. Citizenship must be a South African citizen. Voting qualification must be qualified to vote for that municipal council or registered or entitled to register on that municipality's voters' roll. Nomination must be validly nominated as a ward candidate, PR candidate, or independent candidate in terms of electoral legislation. Clearly, that threshold is not particularly high. Just about everybody I know does meet that criteria.
I could step forward myself.
Anybody in this room, anybody who hears this, for so long as they are South African and qualify to be in that particular council and are registered to vote or otherwise eligible registered to vote. So it's not a particularly high bar. And because of that, you then start to attract the kinds of personalities, characteristics, and traits of what the system requires. You get people who may very well be at variance with that. Because if you ask them, do they qualify, and they say yes, they have got no lesser right to be there than somebody who perhaps might be the best exponent of what it is required to be the mayor of the city of Johannesburg. Perhaps therein lies the challenge. If you allow me, let me read from what Advocate Marumo Mwerane, 2017, he pens the Marumo Commission of Inquiry report. And part of what you're engaging is addressed in his recommendations. In relevant part, I read at paragraph 1196. The evidence indicates that weak political parties and leadership is what leads to factionalism and intolerance within and between parties, which in turn results in violent conflict, often resulting in the murder of political functionaries. It is therefore recommended that political parties build a strong membership base that is rooted in democratic values, political competition, tolerance, sound moral values, and service to the public. Another paragraph which then ties this. Whilst educational qualifications should never be a requirement to hold public office, as such a requirement will violate the democratic right of any citizen to hold public office, it is recommended that political parties and state institutions should provide effective and appropriate training as well as reassess any current training so as to ensure that elected public officials are well prepared for the tasks that they are expected to carry out. So the threshold being so low, it can't be that threshold and no more.
Yeah.
That is what is addressed by that seasoned senior counsel in Advocate Marumo Mwerane. The question then is, what is South African society going to establish for itself as that standard beyond the minimum qualifying criteria that should then, through its being adopted and or applied, will reasonably so get you to the kind of class or category of persons who on their best day will be able to do so.
Yeah. This is, I mean, that for me is going to stick with me for the next 4 months because, again, when you talk about political killings, this is what we're going to be, and hopefully not to the extent as what we've done in previous local government elections. We're going to be watching for political killings as we get closer to November. And as the media, we're going to be reporting on it. And not just that, I suppose there's the ethics of all of this, which you'd hope that the electorate is looking at, particularly in municipalities that are so fragile and vulnerable. Treasury, of course, just, withholding funding from 69 municipalities amongst those metros. Johannesburg, I mean, you've got to think about Buffalo City. Yeah. I mean, you've got to think about just how monumentous that really is, and it should worry all of us. Our responsibility, let me ask you the moral question as a media practitioner, our responsibility in the next 4 months to ensure that the electorate is asking the right questions of their candidates as they decide where they put their X.
Fascinating question. I was watching a podcast by one of my heroes, retired Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke, in the African Renaissance podcast with another personality. He talks and addresses this. You have a judge, a senior member of the legal profession, answering the kinds of questions just in a society that prides itself. A judge should not be answering, rightly or wrongly. A judge simply should not be in that position. Shakespeare, Julius Caesar. My wife should be above suspicion. Romeo and Juliet. My wife should be above suspicion. It's not whether or not my wife cheated. The fact that there is this question
of suspicion
is enough.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's Shakespeare over 200-300 centuries, how many, 100 years ago?
Yeah.
That. Now, when you are engaging that, should we be asking the kinds of questions we are asking? We saw yesterday and are seeing today in our courts right now in the Western Cape High Court, questions about potential presidential impropriety, about a robbery at his farm. This is our number one citizen, that if everything had to be done away with, the one thing that should stand last is that individual being asked such basic questions of integrity. It is true for his predecessor too. So when you talk about what questions our society should be asking, one of the things we ought to be reflecting on is, where do these people get drawn from? It's the very same society that's going to be delivering into these positions these persons to whom I've made references to.
Yeah.
And perhaps then in engaging, the point that Justice Moseneke was engaging was, we ought to first of all ask the question and answer it for ourselves. What is our moral threshold as a society? The answer to that question will answer all the other questions as they pertain to who should be leading us.
Yeah. I think that's a great place for us to close it off. And it certainly gives me and all of us a mandate, I think, over the next few months as we communicate as a country and decide on who leads our communities, who delivers water and electricity and infrastructure in all of these projects to our homes. Our very own Nqaba Mabece. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. You've been watching SA Explained right here online for us. Of course, this is the ENCA team. I'm Naledi Moleo alongside Nqaba Mabece. Have yourselves a wonderful day. I cannot wait to see your comments.